What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 46th episode of our Nintendo podcast directly to you. I think that's the 46th episode. I'm not 100% sure.
Yep, it is.
I am joined by Parker.
Yo, what's up?
I be AJ, as you should know by now, unless you're new. If you're new, hi, hello. And maybe, if you're new, you don't know that you could become a channel member on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Fanatics4. If you like what we make here, you can get supporter benefits like exclusive emotes, loyalty badges, gaming time with us, Switch keys from time to time, and priority in my gameplay streams every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. You can also be a supporter through Anchor's listener support program. That's more complicated. $1 through $10. If you support at the $5 mark, like on YouTube, you'll get most of those things, just not the loyalty badges and the exclusive emotes, because that's through YouTube. But with all that out of the way, how's life, Parker? How's life?
Life is great. Yeah, no, very good. Been playing some games, been hanging out. It's a long weekend coming up, so that's a lot of fun. Got Monday off, and I'm going to do who knows what. So that's all good stuff. Yep. You've been playing a lot of games recently?
Yeah. Today I've been playing Travis Strikes Again. Mm-hmm. I talked about my thoughts on this game, that I'm like meh on it. Oh yeah, also product provided by Nintendo. But yeah, I've been
Shout it from the mountaintops.
I don't want the FTC coming for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, I've been playing that game, and before it came out, I was like lukewarm on it. I would even say that that's an over exaggeration of how excited I was for this game. And hey, you know, my views have not changed very much in the like hour to 2 hours that I've played so far. It definitely is the game that I thought it was.
Mm-hmm. That seems to be the general consensus that I've seen too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything in specific that's making you feel those ways? It
just doesn't feel like, and I know that this isn't like a full price game, right? It's $30 or whatever. It doesn't even feel like that. Mm-hmm. Like, and I don't mean like graphically. Like, I know some Switch YouTubers are like, the graphics are blah. I don't care about that. It's just, it feels like a Xbox Live arcade game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think that there's a price bracket that you need to be hitting there if that's what you're going to be aiming for, you know? Right.
There's something, I don't know if I'll be able to phrase this well, but from the looks of it and the things that I've seen, it does feel like there's a difference between, it's like a smaller version of what's a big game as opposed to like, you know, Hollow Knight or whatever is like an expansive small game where it's like there's a ton of stuff to do and it's really in depth, but you can also like, you know, do 100% of it in, you know, a small time frame or whatever, but it feels small. Whereas this feels, it like looks and feels like, again, I haven't played it, but just from everything I've seen, a pared down version of what should be a big game. I can't put my finger on what exactly that difference is, but
it's like this weird middle ground, because it's like, I know another thing that people like to throw around when they don't like a game or when it's like a smaller scale thing is like, oh, this game is lazy. I definitely don't think this game is lazy, but I also don't think that they priced it correctly for what it is. Like, I think that they paid a lot of attention to a lot of things that don't really add like inherent value. You know, like you have to be really into what this game is to value what they spent a lot of time and money on.
Yeah, that's always interesting, because I think there's things that taking a look at like all of your Action Point videos, I feel like especially points to it. There's like simple things that can make really big differences, and sometimes those are just complete oversight. Like from just the videos that I've seen, it seems like enemy variety is something that's somewhat lacking in this game. Yeah, and that's one of those things where it's like it kind of wouldn't be that hard to even just throw different skins on different enemies, I feel like, to make you think that there's different enemy variety. Like, they maybe even behave pretty much the same, but you don't really realize they behave the same until you get into it. I don't know. Or maybe that is the case. Maybe it is like that. It just doesn't, they don't feel different.
I don't know. Like, I don't know how deep the mechanics get. Because like I said, I mean, the game's, I can't imagine the game is much longer than what I've played so far. But I definitely didn't get far enough for it to, like, you know, get to the point where they're throwing new mechanics at me and stuff like that. Like, I got, like, 2 out of the I don't know how many specials are in it, but you have 4 different specials that you can use. I have 2 right now, so I'm not like super deep yet. But everything in there, it kind of feels like, you know, like an old school beat 'em up game.
Yeah,
and that's fine, but it just isn't like this thing that should have been, you know, blown up to this level, you know, of being like, this is like one of the biggest announcements that we have at the first time we're seeing the Switch, you know, like this is one of the first ever Switch games we knew about, and then we had to wait like another 2 years to get this game. So it's like that sort of thing. I don't know if it's worth that.
Right. It's kind of, I mean, it's similar to the Nintendo Online stuff where, like, I think the product didn't deserve the hype that it was getting, where we waited so long for the online service. And it was like, I mean, obviously, I agree with pretty much all the thoughts that you've said before, where, like, it's going to be great, and or it'll kind of have to be, or maybe it won't be, but, like, it kind of has to. But honestly, the biggest problem that I saw with it was just the fact that it had been hyped up for so long that, like, it's going to come and it's going to be great. And then it's just like a little bit lackluster when it finally comes out. But if it had come out exactly like it was a long time ago, it would have been great. And same for, like, you know, if Travis Strikes Again had come out in the first year of the Switch, people would be super jazzed about it, I feel like.
I think the only way that they would be, like, super jazzed about it is if it was a launch title. Like, I'm talking came out like around when Snipper Clips came out. I could see it being a bigger game than what it is, you know?
There were a lot of games like that, honestly. I feel like where, like, I was just thinking about that on my drive home from work today. Snake Pass.
Yeah.
Like, that should not have been what it was. I mean, cool. It's cool mechanics, sure, I guess, or whatever. But it was like, I remember because it was one of the first games that came out, everybody was like, oh, it's a new game on the Switch. Like, we can take a look at it. And so just for it being on there was enough reason to be super interested, which isn't saying a lot.
Right. Like, I'm taking time away from Smash Brothers to play this game.
Right.
That's
There's
not
a lot of
okay.
other stuff demanding your time. Yeah.
Smash Brothers, Parker. Smash
Brothers.
How dare they use up my Smash Brothers time? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Yeah, no, I'm still having a great time with it. I'm playing a lot of Smash still, and also right now, just keeping on going on Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, which I'm gonna append some things to if anybody out there listening hasn't seen AJ's video on you know.
Which one? I've made so many.
Yes. Specifically the one that's like, you know, if you're a Pokemon fan and haven't played Pokemon Let's Go and aren't sure what to think about it, you know, here's some thoughts. Or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
That one I thought was quite insightful, and especially for me where I just wasn't sure what to think about it ahead of time, like if it was going to be too casual or any of that stuff. So my thoughts kind of go right in line with yours, where I'm not like catching a whole lot of Pokemon. So essentially I'm not grinding a whole lot. Which is I end up doing a lot in regular traditional Pokemon games because I like to be over leveled. Whereas for this, it's not particularly fun to, I mean, it's like fine to catch Pokemon, but it's like, I don't really care about, I care about resource management. And so using up all of my Pokeballs to just catch all these Pokemon, I'd kind of just rather not.
Yeah. Which
Which means that I end up being kind of under leveled for stuff, or leveled like pretty evenly as I'm going through, which ends up making the game way more challenging in a good way.
Exactly.
And so that's something that I've really appreciated, is like, because I just got to I just beat Erica and was up in the Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town and stuff, and was sort of at a point where I was like, I don't know which area I want to go to first for leveling purposes. Like, I don't know where I'm actually more prepared for, because I think if I go to the wrong side of this, like if I try to beat Erica first, maybe I won't even be leveled up high enough. Which is sort of a good problem to have, in my opinion. So yeah, and it's a lot of fun, especially besides the catching mechanics. It's kind of just a regular old Pokemon game.
It's just Pokemon, you know. And like that, and I've talked about, obviously I have so many videos on it, but like people, I feel like just due to the existence of this game and like the idea of like, oh, we want to bring in more Pokemon Go players, so we want to give them this like easier on ramp. People are thinking like, oh, this is a baby game for babies, and it's like, no, Pokemon has never been hard. This is just slightly easier to get into. It's easy to learn, difficult to master scenario here. Where it's like, you can very well be very over leveled if you're like, I'm just going to chain captures at the first gym, you know, like I'm going to catch a shiny every Pokemon I see, you know, like if you're doing that, then yes, you will be over leveled. But if you're playing the game, like I think is normal, because like I've never been the type of person to grind, especially in Pokemon, because it's like that's not fun to me, you know, and it's never needed, and therefore it becomes more fun when you have to actually think to be able to win a battle and not just press the move with the most Pokemon attack. You know,
right? Yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, like I feel like most JRPGs are pretty much like can be really easy if you just grind a lot. But I mean, besides ones that there's some that you have to was like that level with you or whatever, and so those ones will stay challenging pretty much throughout. So like Octopath Traveler stays fairly challenging, although there's kind of some gimmicks in there that you can use to make it pretty easy for yourself.
Right.
But Pokemon's just the same way, where like if you over level, everything's going to be super easy. If you're under leveled, it's not like crazy complicated, but it's like a fun amount of complicated, and it can be just challenging to think your way out of it if you can't just beat them with brute force, which is fun.
Agreed.
Yep.
Everybody buy Pokemon Let's Go. It's a good game.
Let's do it.
It's a good game.
Indeed. But yeah, anything else you've been playing this week?
Smash Brothers, new Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe.
Not a long title at all.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. I've been also I used Windows yesterday. That sucked.
Windows like the operating system?
Yes,
or like...
I hate Windows so much. I hate it. I hate everything about it.
Yeah. What do you normally use?
Mac OS.
Okay, gotcha.
I just can't deal. I can't deal. And I didn't even like grow up with Macs. I didn't have a Mac until I was like in high school. Which wasn't even that long ago. You know, like I've been using Macs for like, I don't know, like 7-8 years or something like that. And just going to Windows is like why do people choose to use this?
No, it's definitely weird. I know I had a Mac since I was like 13 or whatever is what we used, and then all of a sudden going to like my first, you know, like grown-up job or whatever, like office job, had to use a PC, and it was a weird adjustment period. And now I'm actually recording on a Mac, but talking to you on a Windows computer right now. So I'm fairly used to both of them, but there's an adjustment period for sure. There's
just a lot of things that it handles in weird ways.
Yeah.
Like
especially file management type stuff, I feel like it's just not like super conducive or user friendly.
Like just installing stuff is like a process, you know. Like I can't do what I do on Mac, where it's like, oh, there's a download button, click download. Oh, it's downloading. Okay, it's done downloading. I'm going to open it. It's like, okay, you click download. It's like, do you want to run this or open it? What? Like,
which one makes it work?
Like,
just like that's it.
You deal with that. You're the computer, you know. Like that stuff is like, I don't know. I like technology for its purpose. Not a tinkerer, so I'm not.
Yep. Yeah, that's a big thing for sure. If you like working on stuff and tinkering, like you said, then PCs are for sure great. And whereas Macs don't really give you that opportunity. But if you don't want to do that at all, Macs are just all set up for you, and it's nice and fancy and fun. Yeah.
So for people that just want to get in their car and drive it, you know, get a Mac.
Yep.
If you want to assemble your car every time you drive it, get a PC.
Touche. Yeah. Well, with that, let's get into talking about some news things that are a whole lot of fun. This first one that I found it's okay. There's not like a quick summary of this. Is actually there was an interview with Furukawa, who, as we all know, is Nintendo's president as of I don't know, June, I think.
I think it was July, but was it
July?
We're getting the weeds.
Yep. But there was an interview with him in any case, and it's just got a lot of little interesting tidbits. So he talked about a couple of different things and has just a couple sentences on each. So I just figure let's go through them because, I I just thought it was interesting. So the first thing, this is fairly poignant right now with some news as well. Do you think you will reach 20 million Nintendo Switch units sold by the end of the fiscal year? He was asked. And he said, it's not an easy target to hit by any means, so we're going to thoroughly examine the trends from the year end and beginning of the year. We'll be going into our third year of the console soon, and the newness, quote unquote, of the Switch will start wearing off. So it's crucial for us to release a steady stream of games. We want to show off that users can change their playstyle with the hybrid console, and that it can be taken with you and set up anywhere. End quote.
So, don't we have a question in the Q&A about whether or not we think they're going to do that?
We do have a question about that. Here, let me check who that was, just so we can be sure to give them credit. That was Patar35. He said, yeah, do y'all think Nintendo will sell the 20 million Switches in this fiscal year that ends March 31st?
Yes. And I always thought they would. Like, I know a lot of people were like, I don't know, it seems like a lot. They only sold but this much. And it's like, I mean, yeah, but that's kind of like saying, I don't know, you might not get that game you want. It's already March and you didn't get that game you want. It's like, yeah, because Christmas didn't happen yet. You know, like, that's where they sell most of their consoles. Is during the holidays. And people are like, they only sold 8 million up until this point. Okay. So wait until Christmas and then we'll talk, you know?
Yeah, right, exactly. No, I mean, there was whoever that was, Michael Pachter or whatever.
Yeah, that guy's a hack.
I didn't remember specifically his quote until I was listening to the Wolf Den stuff, and they quoted him as saying that he thought it was only going to sell 8 million total in this fiscal year, which I was like, goodness gracious, that's just kind of dumb.
Are you stupid? It sold like 17 million in its first year.
Yep.
And that was without Smash Brothers or Pokemon.
Right, yeah. No, and I never knew specifically if I thought it was going to hit exactly 20 million, but it was one of those things where it's like, if it didn't, it was going to be really close and like it wouldn't really matter, you know, like, but definitely that it was going to sell a ton, and it has sold a ton over the holiday season. I
heard that a Smash Brothers game was coming and a Pokemon game was coming, and I was like, 20 million easy. And then I heard that a new Super Mario Brothers game is coming. I'm like, well, there's another couple million tacked onto that.
Yep. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think the only thing that would make me concerned for it is, well, not even concerned, but is people who are like my friend who is like specifically like really wants to get a Switch, but is waiting for a Switch Pro because there's been so many rumors for it. I don't think there's enough people in that camp to sway it really. Yeah.
I feel like that's a really niche people. It's a really niche camp where it's like you're like really in tune with technology in that way. And you're like, I don't know, man, they might update it, might get it might get some new hardware. Most people are like, oh, the Switch is there. It has Smash Brothers, Pokemon, new Super Mario Brothers, Mario Kart. Buying it.
That said, this is a tangent for sure. I was excited to hear my wife say the other day, she was like, you know, if I had a Switch of my own, I might be more liable to play games on it or whatever, which I don't know if that's true or not. Who's really to say? But that means that, like, and she's not, itching for one right now, but whenever the Switch Pro comes out, that's like a perfect excuse for me to be like, all right, then I will put in the money to get a Switch Pro for myself. You can have my old one. Everybody's going to be really happy.
That's true.
And that's very exciting for me. So
these are facts.
So yeah, his comments I thought were just interesting on that. The next thing that he was asked is, you recently meshed the mobile game Pokemon Go together with the Switch. And then he answers, which that's not even a question. It's just a statement. He's like, Furukawa said, smartphones have their own unique play style. We don't intend for Switch games to play like smartphone games or vice versa. Our goal is to get people interested in Nintendo's characters and increase our fan base. However, games on smart devices are different from consoles. A smart device game doesn't sell out. Rather, after the game gets distributed, more content continues to get added. A stable flow of revenue is connected to this constant improvement of the game. We will continue our pace of releasing 2 to 3 smart games a year. Or smart device games a year.
Let's just start calling them smart games, you know what I'm saying? I make people like them more.
Yeah. I don't know. Thoughts on that?
I mean, yes, that makes sense. Remember when they were like, "Oh, we're not gonna make smartphone games"? That'll never happen. And now they're just like, you know what? 2 of them a year.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm trying to think. Did we? Yeah, because we had 2 of them last year. We had Animal Crossing Pocket Camp and Dragalia Lost.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and then this year we've at least got Mario Kart Tour, and if they're planning on doing, more.
And was Fire Emblem the same year as Mario?
I think so. I don't know.
It might have been Miitomo and Mario in that year.
Yeah, Miitomo's still doing really well.
Oh my god. Rip and rip.
Not so much. Very much so. But yeah, I feel like, he talks kind of about the whole, use a smartphone game to bolster the franchise and stuff, which I feel like probably definitely happened for. I'll be curious to see, because Fire Emblem Three Houses is going to be the first real Fire Emblem game to come out, I think, because Fire Emblem Warriors came out since Fire Emblem Heroes has been out.
Yeah.
But because Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia or whatever that was, I think was before Heroes came out.
I think that was like right before it.
So I don't know. I wonder. It'll be hard to gauge exactly if it's in relation to the smartphone game success, but it's probably at least partly due to it, or that'll be helpful for sure.
We'll have to look at Japan for that, because I feel like Japan is like solely carrying Fire Emblem. On mobile.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and he'll have another, or there's another.
Oh wait, it was right after
Echoes was.
Yeah.
Okay, and that sold pretty well. I'm pretty sure.
Echoes was 2 months after.
Nice.
Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out.
And I feel like Heroes probably was kind of like a slow start, but I don't know. I wasn't honestly paying attention right around then. Or maybe I was. I don't know. Not to that, at least. But I feel like that might have been a slow start, and then kind of, it's just been cruising from there.
Yeah, I think they've said as much as like that's one of their most successful mobile games, because per capita it makes a lot of money.
Yep. No, I think for sure, by like charting wise, I think I saw a chart where it was like 3 times more successful than each of their other ones. And man, I've seen so many ads for Dragalia Lost, and I just don't think that game's doing as well as they want it to be. Which, it's doing fine, but it doesn't seem like it's doing super awesome. But
Dragalia Lost is like the only one, and I'm not huge on mobile games anyway, but that's not true. Dragalia Lost and Animal Crossing Pocket Camp are the only ones that I just didn't spend any, like, I don't even want to say real time, because I haven't spent that much time in anything but maybe Pokemon Go and Mario Run. But like Animal Crossing, I opened that a few times just to make Animal Crossing videos. But outside of that, I haven't like messed with much of the mobile games. Dragalia Lost is like the one that I'm like the least interested in.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, like, because there was a game called, I think it was Demon Hunter 4, and it's just like a hack and slash. Honestly, it's kind of similar to Dragalia Lost in some ways, but it's like a hack and slash mobile game. And before having the Switch, so like in 2016 or something, I spent a bunch of time in that, just kind of sitting and playing around and stuff. And if it weren't for the fact that Dragalia Lost, like, I've got a dumb old 16 gig iPhone, which just is not very much space at all. And so I can't even fit the dang thing on my phone. It's, I downloaded it once and had to delete a bunch of stuff off of it. So if it weren't such a huge download, then, because it's like 3 gigs or something ridiculous. If it weren't such a big download, I wonder if that would be helpful for anybody. But I assume there's not that many other people in my fairly niche camp of tiny phone sizes.
Yeah, like, I haven't even thought about download sizes on my phone. Like, I overcompensate in that area. I have like 128 gigabytes on my phone, and I maybe use like 30 of it.
Yeah, if I were smart, at this point mine's just paid off, so I don't really feel like doing anything about that. But whenever I get a new one, if this thing dies, I'm definitely getting more than I've got right now. The next thing that Furukawa was asked was about Labo. It says, Nintendo Labo was an innovative new set of games that incorporated aspects of engineering. How has it been going? Which I don't feel like we've heard official statements from them very recently, so I thought this was interesting in any case. He says, it hasn't sold as well as our other hit games have, but we did have an increase in sales for Labo during the end of the year. There are many new ways to experience Labo, and we're working on formulating new methods that convey its allure so Labo sales will have longer legs. End quote.
Last time I heard with that Labo sold at least 1 million units, right?
Yeah, I think
I think it was like combined though. Like between the first two.
Yep.
I don't think the vehicle kit was out when they.
I want to say that was in the after quarter one, so that would have been June 30th or whatever that they talked about it. Which that was still when kind of it was on the, on our minds a lot more. I feel like. Right. I thought it was just funny too that he seems like a much more straightforward guy than a lot of other CEO or PR type people are. Like Reggie is very good at PR kinds of stuff, and so kind of works around and isn't very negative or anything.
Right,
not to say that Furukawa is, but like
he would have been like our relationships with like schools and stuff like that, like highlighting that.
Yeah, so like for him to have said it hasn't sold as well as our other hit games have, like all right, that's kind of right out there. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, this is a bigger topic, but like, do you have any thoughts just in general on like what you think Labo might do differently or the same in 2019?
I always thought that Labo was going to be something that was going to succeed whether we wanted it to or not. And mostly because of that aspect of like that they can partner with schools and like any type of like organization that like it's for kids, like Boys and Girls Clubs and stuff like that, and like teach them how to code through, like doing stuff like that. I don't know if I ever thought it was going to be like, like 30 million units, or anything like that. But like, I definitely saw it on like the level of like how like MacBooks succeed. Like they're not selling as much as PC laptops are, but they're really popular and like really in like creative businesses and stuff like that, and in schools. And I feel like Labo is going to get a lot of its sales through things like that. So like rather than selling a lot to consumers, I feel like they're going to sell a lot more to businesses like that and through education.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like Labo's the thing to me that most debunks the whole Switch Mini being what people seem to think it's going to be, where, like the Joy-Cons, or it just doesn't have separate Joy-Cons and stuff. Because if you're wanting an entry-level price point and they also care about Labo, I mean, it's possible they, if they stop caring about Labo, then that's, an extra notch against or for that Switch Minis being what it is or something. But I feel like if they want to have an entry-level Switch, that would be a good thing to pair up with, even doing a Labo bundle or something like that, where, for a kid for $300, you could buy them the whole thing rather than having to get them a Switch for $300 and then also getting them Labo for $70 or whatever, $80 or something like that.
Right. I think that like just the whole Switch Mini thing never really made sense to me.
You're right. I mean, I think my main problem with it would be great in some regards, but I think there's so many first-party games that require, or not necessarily. Well, actually, no. There's like Super Mario Party. You have to have, detached Joy-Cons and stuff, and right. I don't think that they're gonna do that.
Right, and it's like it just isn't the Switch at that point, Right. It's not. It doesn't have their whole tagline where it's like. Mm-hmm. Anywhere with anyone. You can't do that at that point. It's just a portable console. It's just this insular thing that just belongs to one person. And I feel like there's like a lot of people on the internet that like are in this echo chamber of like, like a lot of like the more hardcore gamers are like really insular and like I just like single player games and I just want to play the game handheld and I just want like it's not as social as what Nintendo sees themselves as in a lot of ways. So it's just like they really want the Switch Mini because that's how they see it. And if they can save money on not having to pay for the thing that Nintendo is trying to sell everybody else, then they're all on board. But I just don't think it makes any sense. It doesn't add up. Like,
yeah.
And
I mean, that said, I would welcome it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't boycott it, you know, but it just doesn't. I just don't understand why they would do that.
Right.
Because a lot of people like to bring up like the 3DS, for instance, right? Where it's like, well, the 3DS, they came out with 3DSs that didn't have 3D. And it's like, yeah, because 3D eventually, not even eventually, very quickly became something that was on the back burner. It was not their selling point.
Right.
Because they found out almost at day one that they couldn't even market that to a huge part of their user base.
Right, yeah.
So it's like they can't bank the console on 3D.
I mean, and also the 3D thing isn't a game mechanic. You know, it's not. There are, I guess there are maybe a couple games where
there's
it's
some
used
games
in there.
where it's like easier, I guess, to play the game if it's in 3D.
Right. But for the most part, it's just like this makes it a little bit cooler as opposed to it being like, again, with the Switch, take Mario Party, take, I mean, Pokemon Let's Go, you can obviously do handheld. Yeah. But there's a couple of games where like you pretty much need to have, I guess it's mostly Mario Party. That like
it's Mario Party and Labo. Yeah.
Yeah, Labo. Well, exactly. And that's the thing. Yeah, it's like that's their target demographic for that is kids, whereas their target demographic for the cheaper handheld version would also be kids.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just wouldn't make sense for them to split their user base kind of, but you know, essentially make it like, yeah, this thing that you can use Labo with, you actually can't use Labo with with this cheaper version. And it would just confuse a lot of people.
It's just like there's no world where that makes sense. Because like if they're saying, oh, well, sell the Switch Mini without a dock, which is what a lot of people are saying. It's like no Joy-Con, right? Say that it can use Joy-Con and say that you can get a dock. Say this thing is $200. Right. How much would it cost you to buy a dock and more Joy-Con?
Oh, yeah.
It will cost you more than just buying the regular Switch. Yeah. So it's like it defeats the whole purpose of like, oh, well, you can save money if you buy. Like it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It's just like the Switch that they started selling in Japan, where it comes without the dock and the adapter.
That's the adapter's the part that kills me too. It's like, come on, that's like you really need an adapter.
Yeah, especially with all these dock issues.
Seriously,
with third-party docks and stuff like that.
No, I mean, my not even prediction, but the closest thing I could see to that seems reasonable. Again, like Nintendo can do whatever they want. Just because it's reasonable doesn't mean they're going to do it or not do it. But the thing that I would think is most reasonable of a version of that is doing like a quote-unquote handheld only. Well, it's not handheld only. It just doesn't come with a dock, but comes with a charging cord, and the screen instead of being is like more like plasticky or whatever, and so is more I don't know, kid friendly or something, I guess, in some regard, and then is just a little bit cheaper that way. And that's about the closest that I can see to that, because the Joy-Cons still need to be Joy-Cons, like, you know.
And ironically, I feel like the only part of the Switch that really is fragile in my experience is the Joy-Con.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Because I've dropped my Switch plenty of times, and I've broken a Joy-Con, but never cracked the screen, don't have any scratches or anything like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So I'm curious to see where all that goes for sure. But speaking of their other handhelds too, he was also asked about the handheld system, the 3DS. So they asked Furukawa, what are your plans for your handheld system, Nintendo 3DS? And he answered, we're nearly 8 years into the 3DS's life cycle now.
Jesus.
Boy, howdy. So the amount of gamers who have wanted to purchase it are already there. The 3DS has its advantages in being a simple and lightweight handheld, and that is also quite inexpensive. We plan to continue our 3DS business moving forward as we've already prepared it to exist alongside the Switch. End quote.
I just don't know if those 80 million people are there.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. There's definitely not. I am curious what the ratio is. I feel like 55 million actual people, but not all of them paying attention by any means.
Yeah, I don't even. I think that I can see it being like 40.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people lost their 3DS, or maybe they have multiple 3DS that they don't use, like an older one. Like, maybe they had the old version, like the fat one, and they're like, oh, I'll get the new 3DS, and then they have that, you know? Because it's like, there's 80 million out on the market, but a game that they release on there doesn't break 2 million.
Right.
I don't even think Touch is 2 million now.
You don't think what was 2 million? I
said I don't even think they've touched 2 million in a recent release on 3DS.
I mean, also they haven't had any good recent releases, so that's, you know, point against them. But even if they did, I think you're right. I think even if there's users, I mean, even if there's people that exist with those 3DSs, they're not. I wouldn't consider them clientele in the same regard. They're just not like paying attention or wanting anything for that, because the ones that are paying attention and wanting games pretty much have moved over to the Switch. Yeah. Or, you know, are planning on it and are just waiting around, and they don't want to probably invest more time in the 3DS and not move over and stuff. Yeah. No, because you're right. I mean, and the last big game that came out on there, I'm thinking, I mean, there was Yokai Watch Blasters or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Which that's not even a big game. That's kind of a spin-off of something that's...
I mean, it was big in Japan, I guess.
Yeah. Luigi's Mansion, but that's a port.
Yeah, man.
So, hard to say. But, yeah, I'm curious. They keep saying that they want it to live alongside the Switch, and I don't know what that looks like. I'm curious to see what happens with that, because, I mean, we've got, you know, Kirby's Epic or Extra Epic Yarn coming out in March, and I don't think we know literally anything else for it. I mean, we'll find out probably a couple
Watch
things. Yokai
Watch 3's coming to the West.
What's coming to the West?
Yokai Watch 3.
Oh, gotcha.
And then I think that is it. Yokai Watch and Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
Which Kirby coming to 3DS again is like, you would think it would be dead by now.
I am curious if anybody out there is listening and is specifically a 3DS user and like cares a lot about it. Please say something in the comments, because
WarioWare came out.
Oh yeah, that was definitely the biggest one that came out recently. Yeah. But then everybody still was like, I just wish it came out on Switch.
That's true. I had that game, hashtag free product, and I liked it. But the whole time I was wishing it was on Switch.
Yep. Man. And then so some other things that are on Switch is he was asked about eSports. So Furukawa, what are your thoughts on eSports where skilled players compete against each other? ? And he answers, the excitement over it is clear. The core fundamentals of the joy of competition and spectating are right in line with our mindset of creating games at Nintendo. We want a wide age range of players to enjoy this, regardless of experience. So we're currently sponsoring many game events and conventions, both domestically and abroad. For example, last year, we held 2 large-scale events in Kyoto and Tokyo for the first time, called Nintendo Live. However, it is not our intention to arrange a huge prize pot. From here on, we're considering events that will expand our interactions with fans. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of weird with Nintendo and esports, because it's like they've kind of had a foot in for a while with Pokemon. Right. Kind of.
Yeah, that's definitely. I wonder, and is that more Nintendo fronting it or the Pokemon company?
It's definitely a Pokemon company fronting it.
Because I mean, like, I think they do these tournament things to show off their games, but it's not about the esports players at all.
Right? Yeah, and that's why I was talking about, like in the video where everybody got mad. The Fortnite video. Where it was like there's
the Thanos one.
Yeah, there's no players like a what's his name, Ninja. There's like a Ninja. The closest thing we have is maybe Zero.
Yeah, I would say.
And it feels like he's only really relevant when Smash Brothers is new. You know. Yeah. Like in the first couple months, it's like, okay, everybody's on board with this. But Ninja's still raking it in, you know? Fortnite's been out for how long? And it's because, like, Epic Games nurtures Fortnite, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like a part of it also is the kind of game that Smash is, I feel like is less like I remember when I played just a little bit of Brawl back in college but didn't really know what was going on. Like now for me it's fun to watch matches, but back in those days there was one, what is it? It was like a Link versus it was like one of the most popular ones back then. I think it was Link versus Snake, and it was a pretty popular video or something. And my friends were like, "Look at this video, check it out!" And like watching a 7-minute long, Smash fight and stuff. And I was like, "What's going on? I don't really even."
Yeah.
So it's a little bit harder to like follow a narrative in the same way that it is in Fortnite. But there's definitely games that are more like that. I mean, like Splatoon doesn't have any kind of. It's got like people that play it competitively for sure, but it doesn't have a presence on Twitch or anything like that, like you said. And I mean, I wonder, do you think maybe like with Nintendo switching up their, not the partner program, but that thing that they switched on YouTube a couple weeks ago or months ago or so, where they, let people, you know what I'm talking about, but I can't remember the words, where you can like upload things now.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about them turning off the partner program.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Do you think that'll be helpful specifically for esports as well?
Maybe. I don't know if a lot of people are like hesitant to get into esports because of that, because you could have outside, like they've always had outside agreements like that. Like that's why you'd see people like Game Theory streaming Nintendo games.
Right.
Because they have like a very specific relationship with them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know if that's really going to have any bearing on it. I think that a lot of people are going to be more into it because there are going to be more creators just in general streaming their games and playing their games and making videos about their games. So maybe that will then encourage people to be TOs and like, start these whole scenes on all these different games and stuff like that. And maybe that will nurture whatever scenes they have in the future. But I don't know if any like existing TOs are just looking at like, oh, Nintendo ended their program, guess we'll start these tournaments. It's like I think the interest needs to show itself first.
Right. Yeah. I'm curious how that goes. The last thing that he was asked was, how about your business strategies for overseas markets? And so, which he answered, we are anticipating Asia to grow in the near future, which is kind of an interesting sentence in and of itself. In that regard, there are still many things we can do. So we want to challenge ourselves in the Chinese market. Games on smartphones are now commonplace, so we're not necessarily fixated on the necessity of dedicated game consoles gaining ground. We want to expand into that market by the best means possible.
Furukawa needs to watch more YouTube. India is where it's at.
Really? Oh, yeah. Well, T-Series.
Yeah.
True that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess not a whole lot to say. I'm curious what happens with China and all. I mean, they've got this stuff with I don't know. Did you see the thing with the Nvidia Shield TV and the Wii up-res games or whatever? Mm-hmm. That was interesting. I can't remember if I put that in one of our articles or not, but
there was like the Twilight Princess enhanced graphics through deep learning.
Yep. Which honestly, it looked a lot better. That was, and I
gotta tell you, it's not hard to make Twilight Princess look better.
That you are not wrong. Yeah, I played it for the first time like 3 years ago, and it's it's a fun game. I enjoy it. I know it's somewhat controversial one way or another.
It's just so murky. It looks like they just dumped it in Vaseline and then threw it down a dirty hill.
Yeah, so it's nice that it seems to look a little more crisp now.
So I mean, it looks like a game that came out like 2007.
Oh, that's so sad. But you're not wrong. Yeah. So that was the last thing that Furukawa said on all that. And something else coming to the Switch. You actually mentioned this in your video a little bit, but we can expound on it a smidge. That the SNES games, some of them were data mined for the Nintendo Switch Online app. That's most of the story right there. Is that there were 22 different SNES games that were found, and then more recently, to kind of back it up, they found the language codes for all those games, and so it looks like they seem to be set up to come pretty soon. Is what data miners seem to think. So that's dope.
I'm down. I'll definitely play those more, because like SNES is like where we get into the good stuff, you know. NES is like for the history and the culture. It's like this. Look how far we came, you know. But SNES is like, that's when you get into the part of gaming where it's like, oh, this is just like legit like retro. Like we have games that people are paying $25 for still, you know, type of stuff, like Celeste level games on the Super Nintendo. So to have those on my Switch, I'm down for.
Yeah, I feel like NES games still have a lot of kind of the lifeblood of arcade games, which means that they're fun for a spurt at this point, like what we're used to. And, you know, I mean, back in the day, obviously they were fun to play forever because that's what you had. And so you'd go in and, you know, see how far you could get in Super Mario Bros. But it's not like super fun to, it's not like you're coming back to an adventure. I mean, besides The Legend of Zelda, I guess, but even then, like, I couldn't quite finish it. Like I'm
every time I turn on a NES game that's not Super Mario Bros. 3,
right,
I'm constantly reminding myself this came out in 1986. Don't be too hard on it, you know. Like this is a very old game. This game is older than you are. Respect your elders.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, because exactly. So I think that's the nice thing with the SNES games. I do wonder if this means that the videos that go up when they announce the games, if the like to dislike ratio is going to be any different. Who's to say? People still have crazy expectations one way or another. But for me, I'm really excited. Some examples of the games, by the way, for those that didn't know about this already. Super Mario World, A Link to the Past, Super Mario Kart, Star Fox 1 and 2, Super Metroid, Pilot Wings, Breath of Fire 2, and a bunch of other ones. Breath of Fire 2 I'm excited about because that was a game, I played that on the Game Boy back, I don't know, it was like 11 or so, and that was one of those, I don't know if you have games that were like this, but like I played it and then completely forgot about it and like lost the cartridge and stuff, and then years later just remembered a tiny little bit about it and had no idea how to find out what game that was. So it took me a lot of years to be like, oh, it was Breath of Fire.
What was that game? The good old Breath of the Wild prequel, you know?
So yeah, when do you think, out of curiosity, when would you expect those to be coming?
Let's see. When do we got Switch Online in September, right? I don't think it'll take that long. I'd say around E3.
Okay. Interesting. Man, I was expecting I'm fine with it coming out at E3. I mean, I think we're still... It
could also be like a direct thing.
Yeah.
But I just feel like that's like a bigger deal than that. It seems like something that they usually want to roll out at like around E3.
I mean, I think one of the reasons that I think it could be theoretically this month, or at least soonish...
I don't know about this month. We already got our games for this month.
Right. So, but the only reason I think maybe that it could be at least fairly soonish is that they have their investors briefing coming up. And so like maybe they would want to, you know, maybe the investors know that there's disappointment with the Switch Online stuff. So then they'd be like, well, you got some more games, and people are going to be happy about that.
That's true. So, that's true. And that's another reason why I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a direct within the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Just because they usually have their directs somewhere in proximity of like earnings briefing, whether it be shortly before or right after. Yeah, I'm not like 100% expecting it to be next week, but it would, again, it's one of those where like, to me it makes sense that it would happen, but that's not to say that it will, just because I think as me that it would make sense. Yeah. Because I've been wrong before. They've hurt me. Yeah. I feel like we were right, and they were like, you know what? I don't like it. I don't like that. This looks like they're industry insiders, and just to spite them, we're going to change the date. Yeah, speaking of industry insiders, or the lack thereof, or whatever, analysts, and I saw you tweet about this the other day, and analysts have about faced on the 20 million Switches being sold in financial year 2019. Yeah. You don't quote, say. Seriously. This is, again, like talking about the Michael Pachter thing and him being like just obviously so sorely wrong. I don't know how these people get paid. Like, why do they pay them money?
No clue.
I feel like their job is solely to be like, hey, here's the sales data. This is what actually happened.
Right. I mean,
and why do we need to pay another person for that? We have
it's a mixture of
for this,
like that, and just for them to either doom and gloom or like hype stuff up or whatever. Like,
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like the foresight, it's not there. So we don't need to pay them for that. At least, at the very least, slash their salary. at most, fire them.
Yeah.
But at the very least, slash their salary.
Yep. Yeah, the specific quote is Takahashi Mochizuki, and says, "My latest Nintendo story. Nintendo's goal of selling 20 million Switch forecast in financial year 18. Well, I guess that's called a long shot? ? Maybe not so anymore," says Analysts. Some expect firms sold more than 10 million units in October to December quarter alone, which, like, duh. Yeah. So that was, I mean, obviously we've talked about our thoughts on that, and that it's, I mean, almost definitely, or at least they're going to get either to 20 million really close or surpass it, but like somewhere right around there, 100%. And so for these guys, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, fire these people, please.
Yep. Yeah, and more sales talk. This is kind of goes back to last week. So, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is outselling its original release in UK and Japan.
You don't say.
Yeah, this especially, man. So in the UK, it outsold it by 56% in its first 3 days. Then
and at first they were like undershot it. They were like it's 25% or something like that. And they're like, oh wait, it's more than double that.
So, and then in Japan, it was it sold 166,000 in its first week compared to the original one, which was 163,000. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just it's no surprise. And one of my thoughts on this, and I'm curious your take as well, but I have a feeling we align on a lot of things, so I would imagine it's the same as mine. I'm seeing a lot of like other YouTubers' videos about like, is this game really worth $60?
See. This is
so annoying.
This is the thing.
Yep.
This is the thing. That those videos are so easy.
Yep.
To make. Because there is always going to be that contingent of like super passionate gamer that like just wants to scream to the heavens that they're being ripped off for having to pay money for a video game. Mm-hmm. So any video that you make saying that like, I don't know if I am happy that I spent money on this, you know, it's just free clicks. And it annoys me even more when YouTubers, influencers, you know, people whose job it is to tell you what's what, regret something.
Right.
That to me says, why are you doing this then? Because you're supposed to stop other people from regretting it before it comes out. Right, so if you're not informed enough on this game, and it's not like it blindsided us, it's not like they were like, oh, this is going to be a brand new game and we're going to have all these levels and blah, blah, blah. So seeing people being like, oh, I regret buying this game, it just tells me that you were just uninformed.
Right. Which
is kind of like a head scratcher because aren't you supposed to be informing people and you're uninformed? All right.
Yeah. And it's obviously for the clicks and stuff. And that's a real thing. Like people, and as long as it doesn't feel explicitly like clickbait or whatever to the people in the audience, I guess that's something. But it also starts this whole conversation of games being worth something in a generic sense. Okay, here's my problem with it, is that things are only worth whatever it's worth to you on a micro scale. So like if something's worth $60 to me and it costs $60, then I'm gonna buy it if I want it. And if it doesn't seem like it's worth that, like New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, if I didn't think it was worth $60, I'm just not going to buy it at $60, and I'll wait for it not to be $60 in some respect. But the reason it's priced that isn't because Nintendo thinks that it will be worth that or not worth that to me as a human being and a person, but because they know that that's the right market spot for it to exist. Right. And like they know it's going to sell well enough for them at that price, and that if they sold it at $50, maybe they would make more sales, but maybe not enough for, you know, for it to be worth it. And it would set precedent for them to where people would then be more mad later because, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it's It's frustrating.
I just don't understand how people don't understand that companies exist to make money.
Right.
And that's why every company prices their games the way they price their games. Like, so many people think because it is a rarity to be a Nintendo and be able to sell 3 million copies of a game 3 years after it came out, you know, like like a Pokemon game. Like, Pokemon games on the DS were selling 2-3 million copies for years after they were released, and still at 30, 40. Sometimes Pokemon games are priced at more than what they costed when they released in that same iteration of the game. So not in this way where it's like, okay, New Super Mario Bros. On Wii U is $50 and now that it's on Switch it's $60. No, the DS version of this DS game is $20 more than it was when it came out. And it's still selling hundreds of thousands to millions of copies a year. And that's why they cost so much, because people are buying them. And on the flip side of that coin, the fact that you can buy Halo 5 for $6 is not because Xbox wants to be your best buddy. It's because Halo 5 isn't selling enough to be worth $60. So they need to lower that price, or vice versa with Uncharted. The reason why you can buy Uncharted for a couple bucks is because guess what? It's not selling like it did when it came out.
Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, with Nintendo especially, I think precedent seems to be a big thing for them, where like there's they'll obviously do sales on games that aren't selling as well or whatever, but it seems to matter more to them that it stays its full price a lot of time and keeps its quote unquote value, rather than making it cheaper to try to get more people to buy it, because then it seems like it's worth less too. So then it maintains the integrity of their games or whatever. I mean, taking it outside of even video games, like notoriously diamonds aren't worth what diamonds are like cost, but that's what they're charged for it, and that's what we pay for it anyway. So that's just like, that's what the price of a diamond is. But really, as far as like supply and demand goes, it doesn't have to be worth that much, but that's still like, that's the value of it, just because that's what it is and that's what people are paying. So as long as people are going to pay it, it's just going to stay that. And so same goes for this.
Right. Which circles back to YouTubers. That's why, they're doing everybody a service. They're making these videos telling people that they regret buying this game, so nobody buys it, so the price goes down. That's what they're doing.
Yep. Man. So yeah, that's but it sold really well. And something else that sold pretty well was Pokemon Let's Go. And this is, so the Niantic CEO John Hanke talked about, or Hanke, whatever.
I think it's Hanke.
Okay, cool. That's kind of a funny last name. He talked about Niantic's successful business lately and finished his long quote, talking about lots of different things, by saying that the Pokemon Company have been very pleased with both Pokemon Go and Pokemon Let's Go, and are looking for more quote-unquote synergies between the game and core franchise. And that's good news for Niantic too, Hanke says. We've benefited in a lot of ways. Part of that's really obvious, but I thought the synergies part was interesting, because it says with the game and the core franchise, kind of hinting maybe at even some kind of, I don't know, it's hard to say if he's at all referencing the next game, but I don't know. Yeah, what are your thoughts on kind of that case?
I think that they would be dumb not to continue like the connectivity between, not like literal, but like the metaphysical connection between Pokemon Go and the Pokemon core series.
Mm-hmm. Or at least the promotion, like cross promotion kinds of stuff. Right.
But I just think that they need to keep some type of connection there, and maybe not do the whole thing of like just the game being catching Pokemon. Although there's a lot of people that all of a sudden are coming out the woodworks acting like battling wild Pokemon is the best part of the game. Where back in my day, we used to complain about the fact that you walk 3 steps and you run into a Pokemon.
Yep. I mean, everybody's using repels anyway, so.
I'm saying all of this revisionist history, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, I think, and like, I get it. A perfect balance, honestly, is if in the next game the Pokemon are both in the overworld and you can battle them. Right. There we go. Like that's, I think, people's real complaint, or what they mean to be complaining about, is that it's fun to have more opportunities to have battles besides just trainer battles. And so battling wild Pokemon, like that's a real thing and that's fun and all that. But I think like you've said a billion times, the wild part of that is there's a little bit of excitement kind of some of the times where it's like, what Pokemon's it going to be? But then if you're just back in, going through, I don't know.
I've never had that excitement. I feel like I have and I was talking to Bob about this when he was streaming it. I've had way more exciting moments of literally seeing the Pokemon and be like, oh, there's a Dragonite up there. Like that's exciting. Running into the grass and knowing that it's here because of Bulbapedia.com and not being able to find it is frustrating.
Yeah,
but
and it feels more like a relief when it finally... I think if you're playing casually, that's one thing too. Like going through and... The first time I played Gen 4, for example, I was like, oh, cool. I've never seen this Pokemon before. Here's a Buneary, right. And it's like, that's kind of fun. But as soon as you're intentionally going through trying to find something, yeah, that's just super annoying. Yeah.
Also, like, even on that end, if you're like just casually playing it and you don't look up like the ratios and stuff like that, I'm still running into the same Pokemon over and over again.
And it's always Zubat.
Exactly. But when it's in the overworld and I see Zubat, I can just walk around them.
Yep. Man, I still have a grudge against Zubat and Golbat, not gonna lie. Like, I just can't. Even in Pokemon Let's Go, I mean, I just see them and it gives me chills. Like, I don't appreciate them existing really in any regard, but, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I used to dread, and this was another, like moment of clarity for me for Pokemon Let's Go, where it's like, I don't have to hate going through caves anymore.
Man alive, so true. Especially like Victory Road and doing all the strength puzzle type stuff or whatever. The first time you had to do that and like didn't know what you were doing, that was such a pain because like you're trying to actually figure out these puzzles. That was one thing, honestly. So Golden Sun, I've talked about it before. I love Golden Sun, and one of the things I really appreciate is I can't remember if the areas with puzzles have 0 encounter rates or just a lot lower encounter rates, but it's somewhere in there. And so it makes the puzzling really fun because like, oh, I got to this puzzling area, I don't have to worry about it. And you also recharge your like mana or whatever by just walking around your like, magic levels or whatever. And you also have like healing magic and stuff. So it's like really fun to get to puzzling areas. Whereas in Pokemon, the couple of times that you'll run into some kind of puzzling area, you're like, all right, if this is around, somewhere where there's wild encounters, it's just going to be a pain.
It's just, ugh.
Yep.
Just keep it up.
Yep.
Keep it the way that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Give us the wild and like I don't even know if they need to give us wild battles in general, but just like double. I could go so this would be a long video or podcast if I went in like how I would want them to do it, because like that could be another thing that's based on natures, because like we talked about before, like in the anime you don't always battle a Pokemon that you catch,
right? Totally.
So if there's a Pokemon that has like a more like rash nature, or like they're aggressive in any way, then you gotta battle them. Mm-hmm. But if they're timid, you gotta just try to catch it, stuff like that.
Yep.
So that it's not always the same experience with every Pokemon that you run into, but you do have that like increased amount of chances to battle. And a wild concept, but how about making battles just actually fun?
True. Or, I mean, even just rebattling trainers, too. Like, if you want to have more battles, just go back to, kind of like Gold and Silver, but better than that, where, like, you can just go battle people again. So, like, even if you don't battle wild Pokemon as much, you can just, other people will have different... it's not like now, he had a Rattata and it was level 7 and now it's level 12. It's like, no, now he like also got a Nidoran and then, other stuff like that too. I don't know. Would just be fun. But something else that's a little bit fun is, well, not for me specifically, but in general, Mortal Kombat is coming to Switch, and there was a big presentation on the 17th, which was yesterday for me. And so that's cool that it's coming, but there's an article that seems to point to at least it's coming probably later in Australia and UK or Europe or whatever on Switch than it is to other consoles, and it doesn't specifically say if that's the case in other regions, but I think we're assuming still it's not. So if you've seen that article, probably don't worry about it. I think it seems like in the US it's going to come regular date as well, hopefully. Yeah. So honestly, if that's not the case, that's super frustrating. It's not really, because I think what frustrates me about it is stuff where if sales, or like if developers bringing their games to the Switch depends on the performance of other third parties that are multi-platform but then come late anyway, then it's frustrating, because it's like you're not really giving it a fair shot. So, but I think that's not the case anymore.
It's like whenever they have these like staggered releases, that's just one more excuse for people to be like, well,
right,
it's coming here first, so I'm just going to buy this version. I'm not going to buy it twice, Yep. Which, counterpoint, it does seem like a lot of people are double dipping, right? Even with staggered releases for Switch. Like I've heard a lot of people either completely waited or are planning to double dip for Dragon Quest.
Yeah, no, totally. It seems like it too, just from the sales of the PS4 one. And I feel like with like Dark Souls, it seems like it's still sold well on the Switch. I think what sucks about it a little bit is it would have been a much cooler story if it had come out at the same right, because then I think you would have had the specific story of this A, third party, and B, M-rated game did so well, or so much, better on the Switch than it did on these other consoles. And just that, and it's not an indie game, because for indie games it makes a ton of sense and it's commonplace at this point, but we haven't just had that story really happen yet on with third party
before Mortal Kombat 11 sells 12 times more on Switch than any other platform.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. Curious to see what happens with that one, but it seems like, in any case, it's just in Australia and Europe that's going to be probably coming late. But something else this is just fairly new for at least for us today as we're recording, is that it seems like Darksiders 3 seems to be teased, in any case, to come to the Switch as well, because the Darksiders Twitter posted out something and someone was like, it'd be cool if you guys came to Switch, and then they just retweeted, or they replied perhaps. Which is, I don't know, could be nothing, but seems like kind of something.
I feel like THQ Nordic is just like, you know what? F it.
Yeah.
Somebody just has a lot of money and they want to burn all of it.
Yep. So I'm hoping that's the case. I heard decent-ish things about it when it first came out, but then a lot better things after a patch that came out that lets you kind of play it either like it's kind of Dark Souls-y.
Oh no.
But the patch fixes it to be not Dark Souls-y. So you can have kind of an option of how you want to play it. And I think I have Dark Souls. I'm going to play Dark Souls like Dark Souls, and I would play this not like Dark Souls.
Just every game is Dark Souls now.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So, but yeah, that's it for the news. You ready to get into your video? Sure,
fine. I guess so.
It was good. I really enjoyed it a lot. And it was similar in concept to the one from last week. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts going into it just based off the one from the last week, or how you approached it differently or the same or any of that?
I did, like, for the first video, I wanted to like gloss over the non-game dev teams, because like they exist, but I didn't think that people thought that they would be super interesting. But turns out people wanted to know more about them. So I was like, okay, well, what do we know? Like, what do we know? Could like any of them possibly be doing? Are there any that I didn't talk about at all?
Yeah.
So that was one thing that I wanted to focus on. And I also wanted to like try to attach it to like, like more current events. So like the thing with the Super Nintendo and stuff like that.
Right. Totally.
More so than just like, it would make sense if they made this, because in the past they made this, and we haven't had this in a while. So, 2 and 2 together. So just that was really the main way that I wanted to like approach it differently.
Yeah. Now, in that, I think it makes sense for like you and probably even on a separate note, Nintendo or whatever, to assume that those kinds of things aren't as important to people or whatever. But like, it seems like, a lot of other people would want Switch UI updates or like some of the stuff that seems boring, but would actually be great. And so I think even hearing about like, this team could maybe be working on these kind of backgroundy things, those, if they're like quality of life improvements, then that's still really interesting because it just changes, kind of your gaming patterns and all that kind of stuff, which is always exciting and fun.
Right.
So, yeah. My thoughts on the video, just kind of going into some specific ones. You talked about Nerd and that they're probably working on SNES and other consoles for online stuff. And that makes sense to me. Based on the rumors, I feel like my guess in any case for the other consoles that it lists is, it sounds like the count one is not a code name maybe, but like you said, is maybe more just a count of how many there are. So if that's the case, I would guess that the next one they're adding on there is Game Boy. But
that's what I feel like too. But it really just because we really don't know,
right?
Because
totally.
it's like there's no classic console, and the only reason why people knew for sure, other than like for the SNES, why they knew for sure that was SNES is because the NES games share a code name with the NES Classics emulator. So
right.
It can only mean but so much if the SNES one and that shit, blah, blah. But we can't really tell anything with Game Boy or N64 or Game Boy Advance or any other console because we don't have those classic consoles. And we might not ever if Reggie, if his comments about it mean anything.
Yeah.
And I guess theoretically, if count isn't the amount of emulators, that could be N64. That would make sense. Count could be N64 and whatever the other one is. I don't even remember. Canoe? No, Canoe, I think it's SNES.
I don't even remember.
I remember. Too far removed, Wrote that script a week ago.
Yeah. N64 would make sense. Even if it was the only one, N64 would make sense because that wasn't because Game Boy didn't launch on the original Virtual Console on the Wii. They didn't have Game Boy games at the beginning, or did they have them ever on the Wii?
No,
or was that just on Wii U?
The Wii wasn't a portable console, Parker.
Right. Very true. So I don't know. If they're just going by the order of how they did it back in the day, maybe they would go N64 before they do Game Boy, just because that was what they did. But I'm hoping it's something that would be real neat. But again, I'm happy to be patient with those, but just excited.
Virtual
for
Boy
whatever happens.
confirmed.
Oh my goodness, that would what a train wreck. That would be very something. The next one you mentioned was Nintendo PTD, right? Working on probably new hardware, whether that's a Switch revision or the next console. I feel like. Yeah,
I feel like if we're getting a revision, they're working on both.
Right, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Working on the next console.
Yeah, they've got to have something kind of in the pipe. That's why we moved on to Switch so quickly after the Wii U, was because they had been planning for it for a while. Because otherwise, it would have, if they had to wait until the Wii U was a flop already after a couple of years, then it would take a whole nother, the rest of the console regular lifespan for us to actually get a new one instead of the...
Funnily enough, they always start around this time where it's like 2 to 3 years out. They're like, okay, what's the next thing?
Right. Yeah. Because it takes a long time to build that stuff, I guess. I've never done it, but I would imagine it seems like it takes a while to R&D,
especially
stuff like
with Nintendo, because they're like, what if we do this? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
Let's do this though. And they're like, no. But let's do a little bit of the thing that we said the first time, and then also try this and put a vitality sensor in it.
Oh my goodness. Nothing ever happened with the vitality sensor.
Exactly. And this is why.
Yep. Yeah. They're crazy.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. And then Hatena, second party, they created Flipnote and Miiverse, and probably working on Smash World and like maybe an Animal Crossing.
They are. They're 100% working on Smash World.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they said, quote unquote, functions for Smash Brothers Ultimate.
Yeah. 100%.
They're working on Smash World.
Yeah. Otherwise, they would have been listed anyway in like the Smash credits and stuff like that. But no, functions definitely implies that it's not just like working on the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it would be cool. I mean, that just makes sense. I don't even have any comments on that. I agree. Genius Sonority, probably a stadium-like game or providing support on the Pokemon Switch. I kind of hope the latter. But if it's just a stadium kind of Pokemon game, that's also fine too. But I really hope that they're just helping out with the Pokemon Switch game, because if that's big enough to what I expect it to be, I would hope it to be. I would way rather take that over having a like pretty good Pokemon Switch game and a stadium game. I'd rather just have a great Switch game.
There's two worlds where I would be equally excited for either. If they did what I really want them to do with a Pokemon Switch game and like really change stuff up and not just give us the same exact game that we've been getting for the past 20 years with the same battle system and all that crap, and it's just HD Pokemon Yellow again. I mean, essentially, I would be disappointed. But if they give us like this thing of like, this is a whole new ball game, like this is not the game that you know. It's the world that you love and the characters that you love and the basic formula of like, get the gyms, blah, blah, all the other stuff. But how you play the game in the minute to minute is different. And then they're like, okay, we know you hardcore fanboys that don't know how to learn a new meta. You want that old meta, right? Here's that old meta.
Gotcha. Yeah, right.
So in that scenario, I would be down for a Pokemon Stadium. If they're just going to do the same thing over again, then I would want them to be working on Pokemon Switch, because then at least it'll be like a grander version of the same game we've been playing for 20 years.
Yep, exactly. No, I'm with you on both of those. Yeah, and then you were talking about Grezzo and that maybe they're working on a Skyward Sword port or something like that. Yeah, that would be awesome. Or even if, I don't know if we've heard like rumors of a Link's Awakening port, or not port, but like a remake, or if it's just a lot of wishful thinking. And I think it's the latter, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that would be completely out of nowhere. I haven't heard anything about Link's Awakening.
I've just heard a lot of people at various like prediction videos or whatever that a lot of people were like, it'd be great, a Link's Awakening Deluxe, but then everybody was like,
yeah, that's already a thing.
Right,
kinda,
yeah, but like a remake
like an
of
HD,
it. Yes, exactly. I would love that. That would be super cool. But I think we've only, it's possible that game's just on the, over and done with as far as Nintendo's concerned, and they don't really care about going back to it. But it would be super cool, because that's one that I played that one, and years later didn't know what Zelda game it was that I'd played, but I was like, I played Zelda something on the Game Boy and I loved it. And it turned out it was Link's Awakening, and it's really good. So it'd be really cool to see that. But Skyward Sword port would make sense, especially with the stuff that we heard from Aonuma and all that with Skyward Sword.
Yeah, with them being like testing all of the 3D Zelda games with the Wii U at the time.
Yeah. So yeah, all that stuff there. You had some other ones, and I just generally agreed. So let's get to the comments. What did you guys think about AJ's video, or your comments from what he asked you about on that? So starting up, we've got Mark Andrews, who says, thanks for going deeper with the non-gaming teams. I'm currently playing Battle for Atlas and grinding in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Way to go, Mark. 3 betas left to find and a few level 100 plus baddies to take down. I would like to know if there's more information regarding Monolith Soft, and also if you think there's any chance for a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game for the Switch. Cheers! !
That would be the last thing. That would be a third-party video. I don't know if I want to do this again next. I think I might veer away from this concept for my next video.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Possibly. But I do want to do, obviously, I already said it. I'm going to do third parties, and I'm going to do like the rest of the first parties that I didn't talk about. So like Monolith, and for third parties, which would be the Mystery Dungeon games, because that's made by, I don't even remember who it's made by. We talked about that.
We looked at it up last week.
Yeah, but I don't even remember. Oh, Chunsoft.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, I'll definitely talk about that at some point. I don't know if it'll be this soon, but I'll talk about it. Can confirm. Definitely will do that.
I feel like the answer to this the general part of the question, do you think there's any chance for Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game for the Switch?
Yes.
As a general thing? Yeah.
100%. Because they always do it around the next generation. Yeah. Like, it's always within a year to 2 years after a new batch of Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, the only... barring any like crazy off the wall stuff as far as like Nintendo is actually announcing a successor to the 3DS and it's another handheld that it would be super dumb, but any kind of that kind of stuff, like if they're moving everything to the Switch and they're not going to just kill off Pokemon Mystery Dungeon and the Switch still exists, so they'll just put it to the Switch, so it makes sense.
Yeah,
I would see that happen.
I just can't see them. I definitely can't see them doing that.
No,
because the only reason why they would even make a handheld is so that it can take what the 3DS is for, and that's just to be a cheap entry point. Mm-hmm. And what could they possibly do to make a better 3DS that's going to make them money and also be a cheaper entry point than the Switch?
Especially because they've lost the IPs that would go to a handheld at this point. Like Pokemon is not going back. Like there's just no way. And so at this point, I mean, the better thing than the 3DS, just there's not like an in-between between the 3DS and the Switch that's worth anything, really. You know, like it's, if it's better, it's got to be enough better that it's just the Switch, and there you go.
So like, you know what's the successor to 3DS? The Switch in 3 years when it gets a $100 price cut.
That's the one. Yes, exactly. So yeah. So yeah, I think Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. We definitely see that. Eric Henley, we know him. I've finally dedicated some time to finish Breath of the Wild. Good job, Eric. Proud of you. And having tons of fun with Let's Go Pikachu. I'd love to smash online, but I don't want to end up in another Wolf Den video calling out my internet that isn't actually bad. And then he makes a laughing face.
Hey, man. As far as we know, it is.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. Good picks, Eric. I'm proud. I'm not proud that you're just now finishing Breath of the Wild. That's some sucker stuff, you know?
Yep.
You got too much of that Bob rubbing off on you.
A side note on so I was listening to another podcast or whatever where they were talking about Red Dead.
How dare you?
I know, it's appalling. No, I was listening. They were talking about Red Dead Redemption 2 and that like you know, that they want to go back to it and there's like so much stuff left to do and all that kind of stuff. And just like a thought that I had with it, just I haven't played it at all, but everything that I seem to have heard or whatever, I feel like it's something where from everything I hear, it's super, you know, intricate and expansive and like there's always something new to find, and in the same way that Breath of the Wild is and Skyrim is, or any of those kind of games when they came out. But it sounds like the just minute to minute gameplay just isn't as fun or whatever, where it's
not.
So like that's one of the things that's awesome about Breath of the Wild is I could play it when I had like 15 minutes to just sit there and be like, I'm gonna do a thing real quick, and then I did the thing and then I hopped out. But then also I could sit there for 6 hours and I did and you know, get a ton of stuff done. Whereas for Red Dead Redemption 2, it seems like if you don't have that expansive amount of time to, you know, find that open world, it's not going to be actually fun to have done that.
Yeah, I feel like the problem with Red Dead for me is that it's you got to be really already into it, you know? You got to be like you got to be sipping the Kool-Aid as it were. To really enjoy that game. It's not like there was like an article, I don't know who it was like Kotaku or something like that was like games like Red Dead don't need to be fun. Where it's like, what?
Interesting. Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, which I think, you know, goes back to that point for sure of the like minute to minute fun thing, because if it's saying that it doesn't need to, it's like, what are you defending?
Yeah, it's just like, and I don't know, like, as far as like define, like, what is fun, you know, like man, watching a movie is not fun, and the way that playing a game is fun, and the way that playing a sport is fun, you know, like it's all like different aspects of quote fun. But I definitely feel like playing Red Dead is a lot closer to the experience of passively watching something than playing a Breath of the Wild.
I think, I mean, some aspect of fun, at least in games, seems to have to overlap with rewarding. And you know, if there's too much tedium, then it's hard to kind of get to a rewarding point in enough. Like that's, I mean, again, that's the thing with Breath of the Wild is like the action in and of itself is rewarding. Also finding things is rewarding. So like there's just all these little things where you feel like, you know, excitement from
I did a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, you know, so honestly, like I feel like with Dark Souls,
oh God, it's back.
So I played it for the first time. I got it for my birthday, I guess. So like November, in any case, I was playing it a lot right up until Christmas kind of time, or up until Smash came out, honestly. And the thing with it is like it was my only game that I was actively playing, so I would play it because I could go into it and like sink a decent amount of time into it. But as soon as I had other stuff to play that I could kind of pop in and out of, you just can't put as much attention onto that one thing anymore. So I've just put it aside completely until I know that I'm just going to go back to it, which may or may not ever happen. I don't know. I've gotten to a really hard boss fight. So.
Yeah, it's weird in that way because it's like Red Dead I completely dropped because I felt like I didn't have time for it. And when Smash Bros. Came out, I dumped all of my extra time.
Yeah.
That I didn't even know I had. You know, so it's like... So it's like, I made excuse, and I get, like, in a lot of ways, I don't have time to play Red Dead in the way that I have time to play Smash Brothers, because a lot of the time that I spent in playing Smash Brothers went to making videos in one way or another, whether that be to stream or, like, having something to talk about and Action Point. So it's true in one way, but in another, I wasn't interested.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like it exemplifies how much more time I have for a Switch than I do for, I mean, my other console that I have right now is a Wii. So for, you know, but if I had a PS4 or Xbox, I know for sure that I just have more time for something that I can spend smaller increments of time on than something that I have to dedicate so much time to.
Right.
So I think
that's definitely even what it, like Smash Bros. I think I put like 160 something hours into that game, and it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's if you look at my Switch, I mean my Smash Brothers playtime. It, like, even because Smash Brothers delineates it even further, where it's like this is your active playtime, like time that you're actually fighting in this game, and this is just idle, like you sitting in menus. Like my average playtime of active time is about like an hour and a half. So it's like every time I turn the game on, I'm playing it for like an hour to 2 hours.
Yeah.
But it's just sitting there, so it's like I can pick it up, play it for a little bit, do a few matches, do something in a video, write a script, wait for it to render, play another match, you know? So it's like, but I can't do that in Red Dead, because it's like, if you pick that up and you leave out and you come back in, you gotta like reorient yourself and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, kind of like fall back into the world or whatever, whereas it's just fun. I mean, I think, you know, again, Nintendo prioritizes fun and just gameplay mechanics over all the other stuff, which is frustrating in its own regard sometimes when that means that the story is lacking because of that. Because there's sometimes where, like, if they hired specifically, like Arlo has a video series on Breath of the Wild that was a lot of fun to watch, and he talked about how the writers for Breath of the Wild were just the, you know, producers of the game. They didn't hire like actual people who are writers, and so the cutscenes and all that really kind of fell sort of by the wayside in that regard, where they just weren't as, it wasn't as narrative as it could have been, but it didn't have to take away from any of the other stuff to do that. So I think the fact that all, like, the gameplay is really important is great, but you can also shoehorn in the other stuff to some degree as well. I don't know if I agree with that. In terms of like trying to like lessen the skill that it took to do the story that they did. Because for the game that they wanted to make, they couldn't have the story be this like super deep, like really involved thing. Right. Because then it's disconnected from what the gameplay is. Yeah. I guess for me, at least the way that I interpret it is it's more stuff like the end of the game, for example, and he made a big stink about this, and I fully agree, unfortunately. It's just that, like, you beat Ganon, and then there's a cutscene where Zelda's like, you did it, good job. But then there's not, it you know, kind of falls to the Zelda curse of ending games where when you start it back up, you're just right in front of the boss, which that part in and of itself is fine, but there's just not, well, I mean, gameplay wise, that's fine, but there's not anything conclusive really about the world where it's like you get to see all these people that you saved or any of that kind of stuff, which even Ocarina of Time did that pretty well, where it showed like, here's the world all having a grand old time. Like in Mario Odyssey, for example, when you go back to all the other kingdoms, there you get to play with, you know, having Koopa in all those places and all that, but even just getting to see that in a little cutscene would have been cool. But
I think, again, I don't think that was a thing that's owed to, and I agree, but I don't think that it's a thing that's owed to skill. I don't think they needed to hire some type of like seasoned writer. Right. It was just a thing that they chose to do. They're like, let's give this a Zelda, and that's a saying, you know, like a Zelda ending, you know, like that's an established thing in gaming, where it's like that's one convention that they stuck with,
right?
Because they want you to be able to be like, you know what, I want to fight Ganon again,
right? Which I have not done. I've put 250 hours in, but I only fought Ganon the one time. But I mean, it was a fun battle. But well, the dark, whatever, doesn't matter. All that stuff. Good things. I feel like this could be a great, even longer conversation. But we got to get back to these comments. Comment, like, subscribe. Caleb Rosa says there is also a sub game in Kirby Planet Robobot called Blowout Blast, which is basically a 3D Kirby's Dream Land. Oh, and one of the betas for Kirby Return to Dreamland was a full 3D Kirby game. So Hal definitely has been wanting to make a big budget 3D Kirby game, which was, you talked about Hal in your video, which we didn't cover in the part where I was talking about it. So yeah.
I was talking about, I mean, I made a couple of Kirby videos about this very topic where it's like, okay, like I'm done with this Kirby thing. Like they gotta step it up. And yeah, they've expressed interest in making a bigger, more involved Kirby game that's 3D. But just haven't done it yet. It's like just do it, you know.
No, yeah. I mean, and I think your point, especially the Kumazaki quote where he was talking about like we're closing this chapter of Kirby or something along those lines. Yeah. Hopefully like is as telling as it sounds. Like that sounds really, telling that that stuff is changing, and I really hope that's the case.
It's exactly what they need to do with Pokemon.
Yep.
You know, everybody just needs to look at Breath of the Wild and say, "Wait, you mean things can get even more successful? Even if people are still happy with the status quo, we can improve on things."
Man, I really hope that that becomes more of a trend. And I mean, I have high hopes or medium hopes that that'll be the case for at least some franchises.
I just hate the if it ain't broke, don't fix it mindset. I hate it. I hate it.
Yep.
It's so like, ironically, like anti-consumerism. Like, it's like the whole thing is you want people to want to buy bigger and better, but you're not giving them that.
Yep. Yeah, it's a bit crazy. Someone else that's probably crazy. Just kidding. I don't know who you are, Brendan. Brendan Trevathan. It says, right now I'm bouncing between Save Me Mr. Taco, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee.
What is the first one?
Oh, it's so I don't know if that's a full name, Save Me Mr. Taco, or if maybe it is, but it's a Switch game that has the exact aesthetics of a Game Boy game, like an original Game Boy game. So it's kind of like the green and black color, like monochrome kind of thing. And I think it's a platformer, but he's kind of a little octopus looking guy, because I think Taco, the longer version of Taco means something like...
Okay, never mind. I know.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it. I've just seen some screenshots and heard a couple things, but I've heard it's pretty good. So, Brandon, you can tell us all about it in the comments. And he said, I've got some problems with how experience is handled in Let's Go. I don't think they thought that through thoroughly with the effect the wild battle mechanic changes would have on the rest of the game. It's fun. It lets me do what I want, though. Yeah, I think that's why I was saying I just don't catch a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I played Pokemon Let's Go the way that I play every Pokemon game, which is, I like that Pokemon, I'm going to catch it. And that's it. You know?
Yeah. The only times I've like grinded to catch more Pokemon or whatever is when I've got one that I just or I've got a bunch that I just feel like leveling up. So I'll just be like, oh, I'll just go catch some Pokemon right now.
Right.
But, you know, so then I'll put like an Abra and Magikarp or whatever in my party just to get them leveled up. But then besides that, my actual main ones, I'm really not at all. Which is just fun. And again, and someone else that's fun. Sorry, I'm gonna stop doing that. Benjamin Aquino, a great video! Exclamation mark. I'm playing through World of Final Fantasy Maxima at the moment. Sprinkle in a little Splatoon 2 and a little Smash Bros. Ultimate 2. I would certainly like to know more about Bandai Namco.
I wish that I had the mental capacity to play Splatoon and also Smash Brothers. Yeah. But I don't. But every time I turn on my Switch, it's either a game that just came out, so I can form an opinion on that, or it's Smash Brothers. Yep. Like, I'm just still in that curse, if that's what we can call it.
Yeah.
But I do want to play Splatoon. I like that game a lot.
I definitely feel you. I mean, again, I've never actually played Splatoon.
How dare you?
So with that, it's really just that, like, I know that I'm terrible at shooters, and I just haven't ever...
But this is why you need to play Splatoon.
That's what I hear, yeah. And so it's one of those where, like, if... and the second thing that's most important is that I don't play games multiplayer all that much, besides a little bit of, like, local multiplayer with friends, but, like, online multiplayer...
This is why... No.
Yeah. So I think I'd end up playing the single player a lot, enjoying that, and then I don't know for me if it's worth spending $60 again for me, because it's
how dare you.
So we'll see if it next time it goes on. I'll promise you this: next time it goes on sale, I will just get it regardless, and because that's a compromise of some sorts, and then we'll just see from there, and it'll be fun.
And then you can be like, "This is the best game ever. We shouldn't wait forever to buy it."
Yeah, but no, totally. For me. I have, like, I can only ever mentally juggle 2 games, I feel like, at a time, and they have to be pretty different from each other. Like, I'll play, I don't know, Stardew Valley, and then also play, I don't know, Dark Souls or something like that.
Yeah. It just depends on what the game is for me. Like, I could juggle between a lot of different games, but if it's like these, like Spider-Man, when I was playing that, I was like, okay, I can only play this. Right. Like, that's just literally it. I'm not playing anything else.
Yep. I can't play 2 platformers at the same time. I think that's something like after I finished Hollow Knight, I got Celeste, and then I had Celeste and like Crash Bandicoot at the same time, but I haven't picked up Crash Bandicoot yet because I wanted to make sure to finish Celeste first.
Maybe you shouldn't play Crash Bandicoot because it's a bad game.
I like Crash Bandicoot personally.
It's a bad game.
I mean, also, that said, I haven't gone back to it since I was 15 or 14 or whatever.
I'm just saying it was bad. It was bad when you were 15, too. That's all I'm saying.
It was bad, but I liked it then, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, man. Somebody has to like the bad games.
You're welcome. I'm taking the, I'm taking the fall for you. Yeah. Last but not least, for the comments on your video, Fried Melon. Good name, Fried Melon. I like that. The third.
How does that work? Can you fry melons?
I guess you can fry. There's a Simpsons episode where they get a big old deep fryer, and it's Mo switches up his bar into being like a family style restaurant, and they get a deep fryer, and like everything is deep fried.
Oh my goodness.
It's really funny. So I guess you could...
Is that where you got it from? You Simpsons fan, Fried Melons?
Let's find out. Fried Melon. Let us know. Comment, like, subscribe. That third video better talk about Monolith Soft, you know, because they are owned by Nintendo and are working on a new game. Rumored to
Don't you tell me what's due, sir.
I think he just did.
This is why I'm not making that video this week.
Oh, Fried Melon. You ruined it.
Exclusively because of him. No.
Yeah. But yeah, he said, rumored to be a new IP. We're also rumored to be just a new Xenoblade. Still a great rundown overall.
Thanks, Fried Melon.
I guess we'll find out about that in maybe a next video that you make. Who's to say? But yeah, that's all the comments on that video. I'm curious to hear again when you make the last one for the Nintendo parties and stuff, but
it's might not be even the last one. There's 2 many.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like spacing them out makes sense. Personally,
I just want to talk about more stuff. You know.
Yeah. No,
I can't talk about studios for the rest of my life. I mean, in a way, I'm going to be talking about a studio anyway, but
true. So, yeah, and then last but not least, we're into Q&A. We're into your comments and questions. You can ask them on, you can join Discord, ask them on there. You can ask them on Twitter. There's, you can ask them, I guess, on YouTube somewhere, because you post.
Yeah, you can comment on this podcast right here. You can ask them in the podcast comments,
and we would love to answer those questions. First of all, I owe Gazensha Fox somewhat of an apology, because last week he made a long comment talking about Monolith Soft and said that it was talking about their Octo expansion, and we thought he meant to actually type in the Torna expansion, but in the comments of last week's video he mentioned he did mean Octo expansion, that he couldn't find backup anywhere to specifically show that it was Monolith Soft that worked on it, but that he's pretty sure. So sorry to have tried to correct you on something you actually meant. But yeah, first question comes from Patar35. Out of all the Nintendo IPs that are predominantly 2D platformers, which IP would you like to see get a 3D game on the Switch?
I already talked about Kirby at length, so I'm going to say Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong.
Yep, that was what I was going to say, so I'm going to say something different. And again, I agree with your video, because we agree on a lot of things. But it's frustrating me that people are like, no, Donkey Kong doesn't work in 3D just because that one Donkey Kong game didn't work in 3D.
I hate that people use and I mean, I guess I can't completely blame them, because like if you're not a creative, then that's just how it is, you know. It's like nothing works until somebody makes it work.
Right.
But
no, exactly.
That's just how everything is. It's like just because something's not working currently doesn't mean that it never will.
I mean, that's like someone being like, yeah, I mean, I can't run a marathon even if I train for it, because the first time I tried to run a marathon blinds, it just didn't happen. And I wasn't able to. Like, no, just you work on it and then you work up to something. So like at this point, they know how to do 3D platformers way better, you know, as in a lot of people have complaints, I guess, about Super Mario 64 or whatever, but then I don't know. I really like Super Mario 64, but you know, they just get better at things, and they know what things to take away, and that the collecting isn't the funnest part of Super Mario 64. Therefore, it's not like take that and amplify it to 1,000,000,000% for Donkey Kong 64. So I think they should give it another chance, and it would be awesome. For my actual answer, I mean, I would have said that one. Yeah, Kirby would be cool. I don't really care about Yoshi in a 3D environment. I think he's all right.
Yeah, I think. See, the problem is with Donkey Kong and Kirby is because the frequency. Like we get so much of the same thing,
right? That
it's just like, okay, but like, what if we got something different though? With Yoshi, we get a new Yoshi game every 4 or 5 years. So if that.
Yep.
So I'm fine with you. And Yoshi is not like Yoshi typically changes up enough where it's like, okay, yeah, this is interesting.
Right, exactly. And I think that's, I mean, even like Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze is an awesome game and changes up stuff, but it's still, you know, it's like a very, very well done version of a similar concept that, you know, all the country games have been great or whatever. Right. But it's not like changing up the base mechanic. It's just, it's adding a lot of fantastic detail into the same concept.
It's like a new Super Mario Bros. Game.
Right. Yeah.
Which is fine, but just not revolutionary in any way.
Right. So, I mean, I think, whereas with Yoshi, yeah, they actually, like, he does more than just, like, run and jump, and so there's a lot more puzzle-y aspects, and, you know, the way he interacts with the environment is more different than a regular platformer is, so they're able to reinvent on that pretty well. Yeah. So that's, and it's more exciting because, in and of itself. Like,
Yoshi games aren't all Yoshi's Island.
Right.
So it's like that mechanic is different in that way, too.
Yep. I'm trying to think, what are other 2D platformer...
give us another Kid Icarus game. Give us Kid Icarus Uprising 2.
I was going to say, yeah.
Give us Ice Climbers.
That's exactly what I was about to say. No, Ice Climbers, that would... I mean, that's not even like, you know, obviously one that's been around doing things often for a while, but... I mean, they've got to know that Ice Climbers are popular in concept, at least, you know.
Right.
I mean, maybe
Much
they don't,
like
but
Kid Icarus.
yep. I mean, now's as good a time as any of just like give it a shot. Give us an Ice Climbers game. You've got a great video explaining thoughts on that. Was that did Logan make that?
Logan made Logan.
You
took
being
that
Fanatics
video,
4, Logan being Logan.
Yeah, Logan took that idea from under me. I talked about it on the podcast. I said, "Hey, you know, it'd be cool if we had." Matter of fact, I think it was on the podcast with Just Jess, where I talked about. I think that they should make a
That sounds right.
And then he was like, "You know, I'm going to make that video." I was like,
You're like, no.
"That's gross." He does that. He does that all the time, taking my ideas. But I think I still want to do a video about that because he didn't really make the video that I would want to make. Like his idea wasn't exactly the same. There's a lot of stuff that I think that they could do to like modernize the idea of what ice climbers are and actually make it good because ice climbers is not great, not a good game.
No, I played about a couple minutes of it on, there's a bunch of games on the NES online stuff that I was like, I'll give it a shot, see what's going on. And that was like, it was all right. I mean, not a game I'd sit down and play for a long time by any means. But I mean, like we said, that's kind of the case with most of the NES online games. Yeah. I am curious to try, I haven't booted it up yet, but Zelda 2, that seems, I'll give it a shot. Kind of see what's going on there. I like it in concept. I don't think I'll like it in practicality very much, but I
played it before, but I played it on Switch Online for like 5 minutes, and I was like, "Yep,
check that off the box." Yeah, no, for sure.
Can't wait for those SNES games, though.
Yeah, oh man, I'm prepared. There's a couple that because I've got the SNES Classic and NES Classic, and exactly the same thing that we talked about with like just the setup time and like having to. It's not long to set it up at all, but it's just a little bit more tedious than if I were to have it on my Switch. Right. And so there's a bunch of games on there that I'm like, I'm kind of just going to wait until they come here to really give them a chance. Cause like I got a little bit of the way through Earthbound, and would like to play it more, but just don't feel like going and setting it up on my TV. Cause often if I'm in the living room, I'm like, hanging out with my wife and we're watching something or whatever. So we'll see what happens.
Yep, maybe. I debated. I almost bought NES Classic. But then I was like, nah. And then I saw it on Amazon Prime, and Will from the Wolf Den is like, he was like amped for that thing. So I was like, yo, Will, buy this. It's available. Get it now. So then he bought that then. And I was considering getting the SNES Classic, but I just ended up not doing it. I could probably see if I can get one through Nintendo, but it's just not really worth it because I don't think I would make a video about it. So it's like,
Yeah, right. I mean, honestly, for me, part of it is just the longevity of having it because I don't have any kind of collection of. I started gaming with again like Game Boy and 64 kind of time, so I don't have anything hardware wise SNES or NES, and I think just having something like that where it's like I know I'm going to have this forever. Right. That's kind of just nice to have the security of that because like. There's going to continue to be ways to get those games in the future, especially if Nintendo keeps doing what they're doing. But still, just having that is just nice to have on hand.
Yeah, it's definitely neat. But meh. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Patar, the other question he asked was we already answered earlier, but do you guys think the Nintendo will sell the 20 million Switches in the fiscal year that ends March 31st?
Yep.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
LS Drin 2 or LSD Rin 2. I don't know.
I call him Lizdrin.
Lizdrin? Cool. What's up, Lizdrin? 1v1 me in Smash, fam. Bebop. Yo, same though. Zephyr. Ditto. And Dan.
So,
yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Dan, how do I beat Bob?
And then I think Grimhane has something.
Oh yeah. Now that you, AJ, are Dan through the transitive property that is being beaten by others in Smash, how do you plan to reclaim your throne from Bob, who has very obviously been practicing despite saying, quote unquote, the last time I played was this Tuesday, Tuesday being a very recent short amount of time from when the comment was made.
All right. So context for this, we stream Smash Brothers
Yep.
Yesterday? Question mark? I think it was yesterday. I'm pretty sure it was yesterday. Being on Windows threw everything off for me. I felt like it took 4 years.
But I thought you loved Windows. You just talked about how much you loved it.
I hate everything about it. So we were playing that. Mostly Bob was playing. We were supposed to co-stream it, but because Windows was being dumb and I couldn't stream the thing and also stream the voice chat on our Discord call or whatever, it was just couldn't do it. So he ended up just playing against supporters on Twitch or whatever. So he's playing for 50%, for 90% of the stream. And then at the end, we're like, all right, we're going to do 1v1s. So he wins the best 2 out of 3 in that 1v1 that we did. I'm like, Bob, you're literally just warmed up for 2 hours and 45 minutes. This is my first time doing a 1v1 match. It's like, and also, and I took a snapshot of this if we need receipts, but you know how when you beat somebody, you get their tag.
Yep.
I have like 30 of Bob's smash tags. Bob has beaten me 3 times total.
Yep.
We're not going to sit here and act like, because
so it sounds like Bob is way better at Smash than you are.
Clearly,
AJ,
clearly, 100%. But context on that. You're now Dan or Bob or whatever. Dan and Bob have had a rivalry because every time I play somebody that is good at this game but not as good as me, I usually compare them to Dan. To Bob, and Bob doesn't like that. Bob's like, I want you to compare them to me. Why don't you compare them to me? So he was like, you know what? I'm going to destroy Dan. So, and mind you, they haven't played together as much as me and Bob have played together. So that's why we don't have like this storied history. Granted, I also have nearly 30 of Dan's tags. So there's that. There's that context added to that. So I said, whoever wins this fight is the new Dan. And that's who I'm going to compare to people that are good, but not as good as I am at this game. So Bob beats Dan, right?
Yep.
And then Grimhand was like, okay, well, now AJ and Bob had to fight. And if AJ loses this, then he's the new Dan. I'm like, this doesn't work like this. I have a long history of being significantly better. I've earned my stripes.
Maybe Bob is just like a sleeper shopper or whatever, and it's just, he's been faking it this whole time, and it turns out he's actually been super, super good.
No, next time we play this game, Bob's getting at the very least 2 stocked. At the very least. I'm embarrassing Bob just because of Grimhane exclusively. It has nothing to do with Bob.
Thanks, Grimhane. You did it.
Bob's not making a whole big deal out of it. He's not making a stink like Logan would, because Bob knows. He understands. But I'm going to destroy Bob just because of Grimhane.
Well,
it's all your fault, Grimhane. It's all your fault.
I mean, his fault. I'm pretty sure he's fairly pleased about it, I'd imagine. He's not complaining. Yeah. And he actually has more questions too, so.
I don't want to talk to you, Grimhane. No, I'm joking.
I will relay on his behalf then. With the end of January in sight and Nintendo very likely delivering good news to their shareholders at the upcoming meeting, yet no direct announcement despite several leak/rumored days, do you think we'll get one before we see a large chunk of Q4 behind us? ?
I do think that we'll get a direct within the next couple weeks. Do only 2. The fact that we have that earnings report, and they typically like to have some sort of direct around their earnings reports.
Yep. Yeah, and especially because, I mean, just going based off of history, oftentimes directs are on Thursdays. Their earnings report is also on a Thursday, but then their earnings report happens like Japan time during the day, which means it's already happened by the time we get up here in the States, and the directs are typically in the morning. So this is, kind of tinfoil hatty or whatever, but it's like math kind of, and history would seem to show that if it's going to happen on a Thursday, like the 31st wouldn't make sense, but then the 24th is the only one that's left. So it seems like a fair shot in any case.
We've also had directs on like other days too. So yeah. I could see them throwing it out on Tuesday or Wednesday too.
Yep.
I feel like it'll probably be like Tuesday because that's just my luck.
Yeah, that's a good point. That changes stuff for you. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like my personal guess would be this Thursday, which would a little bit suck for me, just because for very like only me reasons of my bosses typically work remote. Well, just in a different office. I'm in kind of the Tennessee area, and they're up in Chicago, and they're coming down that day or that like next week.
So you can't slack off and watch it.
Yeah, like I can't take an extra long lunch break or like work from home or whatever and stuff. So like, I mean, I'll still get to watch it, but I won't get to watch it live with you guys. That would be my guess. So hopefully, if it's less than an hour, I can probably swing it. I mean, it's typically less than an hour, so I'll do my best. But yeah, just my luck that it would be this Thursday coming up. But also, that would be really exciting. So I'm hopeful. For whatever that's
crossed.
And last but not least, a little bit different kind of a question. Grimhane asks, as Logan has now been MIA for several streams, podcasts, and his last video, is Parker now the new Logan? Or are you in search for a more permanent fix?
No comment. I forgot that was in there. No comment. TBD.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think just as far as like, I'll be on the podcast. We know that much.
Yeah.
So that's, you know.
He'll be on the podcast regardless. Regardless of what happens. If Logan somehow appears one of these days, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. TBD.
Yep.
But Parker will be here for the podcast.
What's up, y'all? Get ready for this guy. Yeah, and maybe, I don't know, we've talked a little bit about adding more stuff to this channel, the Directly to You one, but I don't know if what'll happen with that or not. But if nothing else, then at least I'm hanging out for this podcast and I'm having a grand old time, and I appreciate all your questions and you guys' support. Unless y'all are bad-mouthing me behind my back, in which case, thank you for not telling me to my face.
Let him down softly.
Yeah.
Don't tell him about that secret Discord room. Don't tell him.
Secrets, eh? But yeah, that's most of what we got for this week. Do you got anything big coming up this next week, or what you're planning on playing, or any of that?
I just gotta make the video, you know? Just gotta make the video. Potentially too, but we'll figure that out, you know?
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking forward to just playing more Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and some more Smash and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully get to have some video game time on the long weekend. And yeah, should be a grand old time.
Sounds good. Well, guys, thank you for listening to Directly to You, episode 46 ? I hope you had a swell time. I hope you just enjoyed me and Parker, you know, talking about Nintendo and video games and how much I hate Windows. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.